Hello everybody, my name is Ratnos, and today I wanted to make a video about gearing up in 9.1 and several of the weird implications and the changes that are coming out from how gearing worked in 9.0. So I'm basically going to assume that you know nothing about how 9.1 gear is going to work, all the stuff that's come out over the PTR cycle during this video. Basically, the most important changes from patch 9.0, obviously from the start we're going to have Valor gear for M Plus this time. We don't know where the Valor is going to start at, but it's a reasonable assumption that the cap will be pretty low, and you can get maybe one item fully upgraded every other week or so from Valor. You will need to get the new Keystone Master achievement in order to be able to make those upgrades, so that's something that will require playing on actually Tyrannical and Fortified weeks at a fairly high level this time around, if you do want to get them all the way upgraded to that level between Heroic and Mythic raid gear. PvP gear, on the other hand, has gotten nerfed so that the special high item level weapons are gone, and everything has gotten nerfed down to 6 item levels lower than it was in 9.0. So Duelist this time will be halfway between Heroic and Mythic gear instead of being Mythic gear, and every single slot's been shifted down by 1. So you could think, this time around, 1800 was good for 220 gear. Next time around, in patch 9.1, 1800 rating is going to be good for the equivalent of 213 right now, which will be 239 next tier. They will gain item levels in PvP, but for PvP gearing for PvE gearing purposes, they are a little bit worse. Still probably very much worth doing. However, there's one new system that has dramatically increased the relative value of raid gearing, and that is Shards of Domination. And this has been a system that we've not really gotten to test on PTR at all, but this guide on Wowhead, which you can check out in the description below, there'll be a link to it, has the first kind of comprehensive set of information I've seen about how it's all going to work. So, the way that shards work is every character can have up to 5 of them equipped. They go in special domination sockets that only drop from the raid, and they are on every piece of certain types of armor for certain armor types, right? So every helm, every shoulder, and every chest in the raid will have a domination socket on it. And then also these other ones, depending on which armor type you are, will all have domination sockets as well from the raid. So if you're a cloth user, head, chest, shoulders, bracers, and belts from the raid will all have domination sockets. And ideally, you're going to want as many of those as you can get your hands on, but probably all 5 will be best in slot to fit your 5 shards into. Now, shards are in this kind of cool space where each shard is either damage, defensive, or healing, and they're all either blood, frost, or unholy. So you could think of them as being on a grid. In fact, I'm going to open up Microsoft Paint right now and do a quick little grid. Okay, so the 9 unique gems are these different ones. There's 3 blood gems, 3 damage gems, 3 defense gems, 3 unholy gems, right? There's 3 of each of these characteristics, and you're going to get to choose up to 5 to equip. So the pattern that I think is most likely to emerge, especially for DPS, but probably for everybody, is that you're going to want to grab this, the 3 damage ones, and then those effects, the damage, the damage, the defense, and the healing effects will work both inside and outside of raid. They'll work in M+, they'll work in PvP. They're pretty likely to get nerfed in PvP if I had to guess. Probably several times over the course of this patch, if I had to guess, but that's speculation. But those will be good for everybody. So everybody's going to want to get domination sockets so that they can get those effects. However, raiding characters that are optimizing their gear for raid, will likely also be interested in getting a column finished as well. So they'll probably be interested in either 3 blood, or 3 unholy, or 3 frost. Now, obviously, you can only have, with only 5 gems on, you're only going to be able to get a column, 1 full column done. But the reason you want to do that is because there's set bonuses that are available for completing the columns. These set bonuses only work in the raid. The damage effect, the defense effect, the healing effect work outside the raid, but the blood effect only turns on if you have all 3, and it only works in the raid. So the probable best builds for your character is going to be, in a raiding set, is going to be the 3 damage, and then probably a column, whichever one is the best one for overall or for your spec. I don't know how the balance is looking for those right now. And then for Mythic Plus or for PvP, you actually don't need to worry about the columns at all. So maybe you'll do something like these, or maybe you'll do like this and this. because you're just looking at the individual effects on the items. So that's a basic, hopefully a visualization that helps make some sense of how this works. The interesting ramification as well here is that those 4th and 5th slots, after you've gotten your 3 damage slots, if those are the best for you if you're a DPS player, those 4th and 5th slots are only going to be defense or healing effects that, particularly if you're not raiding, you don't care about the set bonus, they will be a little bit less important. But my guess is they'll probably still be worth grabbing, and best in slot sets, it'll probably be worth dropping to heroic level gear, especially heroic Sylvanas or Kel'Thuzad gear, in order to be wearing Domination Socketed gear, rather than the gear from M+ or PvP that doesn't have those Domination Sockets. So, early in the patch especially, when you're making close decisions about, hey, I've got this great vault choice between these 2 different good PvP items, maybe consider grabbing the one that doesn't go in a slot that would have a Domination Socket from the raid, because that's less likely to get replaced. Anyways, let's talk about what those effects are. First off, there's a little bit of a weird caveat here. To activate the set bonuses, in addition to having the column, right, in addition to having a column of either Blood, Unholy, or Frost, you also need to be wearing a specific piece with a Shard of Domination and Socket as well, right? So if you want the Unholy set bonus active, you need to have a helm, a Domination Socketed helm. If you want the Frost bonus active, you need shoulders, and if you want the Blood bonus active, you need chest. Not really sure why that is the way it is. Some flavor piece, I guess. Not particularly relevant, although it might be if you're having trouble ever getting any shoulders to drop from the raid, then you won't be able to turn on a Frost set bonus until you do, and you'll have to go with Blood or Unholy instead. Okay, another note here, for 2000 Stygia, you can buy one 226 item from the new Death's Advanced Quartermaster that has a Domination Socket. These will likely be worth having in your gear set for quite a long time until you upgrade that slot from the raid, because early in the patch they're going to be useful because just getting your first Shard of Domination Socketed is big value. The first couple are going to be really useful. Even later in the patch, though, it'll potentially be worth doing so that you can have, a column and a row, right, from this table. So that is something to look out for. Another thing that Shards of Domination do is they get upgraded. Each Shard of Domination has 5 ranks, and they will get better over time. So for instance, the Blood Damage Shard starts off with your damage is increased by 2% when you have 50% or more health than your target. A tooltip that still doesn't make sense. There needs to be another more in there for it to make sense. But if you can upgrade this to the rank 5 version of the shard, then it will instead be 3% increased damage. So it'll be 50% better than it was at rank 1 by upgrading it all the way up. And that's kind of the trend throughout these, is generally going from rank 1 to rank 5 of any given shard increases its potency by about 50% relative to that rank 1 version, which is not insignificant, but it's also not huge, right? It's kind of similar to upgrading your conduits from 184 to 226 this patch. It's about the same scaling you're looking at there. So you'll probably get more value. You get more value out of adding the second Shard of Domination than even upgrading your first from 1 to 5. But of course, you're going to try and do both. And they are time-gated to upgrading them. So the time gates on upgrading them are, you can do it, you have to spend Stygian Embers, which drop from raid bosses. We don't know the amounts that they'll drop from the raid bosses, but my speculation is that they'll follow a somewhat similar idea to how those profession items did during BFA, where it was like 10 from a heroic boss, 20 from a mythic boss, 1 from a normal boss, and 1 from an LFR wing. My guess is that they'll do something similar where you get more from the harder difficulties, but maybe a little bit less of a steep difference between normal, heroic, and mythic. And there's a weekly that gives you 10 of them as well. And you can see the upgrade costs here. If you want to upgrade a rank 1, the first upgrade to rank 2, pretty cheap. But by the time you're upgrading things to rank 5, this is something that's going to take us a long time, several months into the patch, likely, before we have all of our shards upgraded to rank 5. But again, it's only they only gain about 10% power each time you rank them up. Most of the power is just in having the rank 1. Okay, let's take a quick look at the effects here, just so you can get an idea of the powers you're looking at. So like the blood damage one there, a 3% damage increase during execute and even before execute if your health is high on average. Pretty strong. The frost damage one, your damage is increased by 3 to 4.5% for 20 seconds after attacking an enemy you've not yet damaged. This seems really good to me for Mythic Plus, but especially also for raid fights where ads are spawning. This is going to have pretty high uptime. And the Unholy damage one, damaging a target increases your damage done to that target by either when it's stacked all the way up 1% or when it's stacked all the way up 1.5% for 4 seconds, and presumably that stays active on them. So this is the least conditional, but it is the least damage as well. All 3 of these shards then, the damage shards, end up being in that maybe 2% damage increase when you factor out their conditionalness. This one obviously less than that, but it'll be up the whole time. So not the biggest damage increase, but also 2% damage increase from a slot is quite a bit. It is notable. Then there are the set bonuses to worry about, in addition to the healing and damage effects, or the healing and defense effects. So you can see what those things look like, right? Where this thing's going to be contributing, what is this, 200 HPS or so, up to 300 HPS or so on yourself. So not nothing, but also not hugely impactful, right? This is going to be something where it's like a small percentage of what you see on your healing log, or a small but maybe noticeable effect. Then there are the set bonuses. So again, the set bonuses work only in the raid. The blood set bonus here is a pulsing damage effect that is linked to whichever target you've damaged most recently. And it heals you for the same amount of damage, and it heals nearby allies if you're topped. Then Winds of Winter's got this weird kind of crit thing going on. This is the Frost set bonus, which says each time you crit, the winds accumulate 6% of that effect, up to a cap of 180 per crit, which, sag. But that I guess will keep it from being too strong. Otherwise, this thing was looking pretty strong, though, for crit users. Every 20 seconds, the winds unleash, dealing frost damage equal to the total accumulation, surrounding you in the winds for 20 seconds, which absorbs 100% of the damage that it deals, right? So again, pretty powerful, and like the blood effect, fully effective for both damage and healing. And then Unholy Shards give you your spells and abilities have a chance to drain a soul fragment from your target, giving you primary stat for 30 seconds, stacking up to 15 times, and then when you reach 15 stacks, you explode, dealing some damage, and gaining primary stat for 15 seconds. So you'll notice the Blood and Frost ones, scale with the amount of damage you're dealing, whereas the Unholy one gives you primary stat and then deals a flat amount of damage. It's RPPM based off of haste, so my guess is this one will be a pretty good one for like tanks and healers, whereas these ones will probably be pretty good for high-powered damage dealers. But that's an early guess. I haven't looked at any sims for this. That's just my read on how these things function. These will likely be worth grabbing in the raid, though. The question is just, an interesting question is going to be, when you have 3 shards, is it better to get a row or a column, right? Is it better to have the 3 damage ones, or to go and get the full blood set bonus, for instance? And that is an interesting question that hopefully by the time we are asking it, it is answered by some lovely theory crafters, and it might differ from spec to spec. But that's the basics of how the Shards of Domination system is going to work. The TLDR is raid gear is going to be really good this coming patch, particularly those slots you're going to need to be careful of. You're going to need to be careful about legendaries crafted in those slots. If your legendaries are in Helm, Shoulders, Chests, or any of these slots for your class, you need to have a little think about it. The good news is Soul Ash is not going to be a limited resource next patch. We'll have more of it just from the Torghast runs that we do for the new currency, for the Soul Cinders, than we know what to do with. So we'll be overflowing with Soul Ash after the first couple weeks. You just have to be careful to not use the new Soul Cinders on upgrading an existing rank 4 legendary to rank 5 or rank 6 if it's in one of these slots. Instead, you should probably recraft over into one of the slots that legendary goes into that isn't on this list. There are a couple of other things to consider about this as well. For instance, if you do this right now, you might want to add a regular socket to the new legendary if you can, because maybe you can then upgrade it and it'll keep that into the new patch. That's an open question. And also you might want to consider where the BOEs drop for your armor type, because BOEs Also, if you're planning on buying those from the auction house, you might not want to craft a legendary in those slots if you have two options that aren't domination slots. So that's a little bit of juggling to do. It's probably going to involve recrafting legendaries for a lot of players this coming patch. But again, not a big deal because the Soul Ash is basically infinite. It's just a little bit annoying. Kind of weird, but yeah, not a big deal. Something to be aware of, though. Definitely don't use the Soul Cinders on a slot you're going to need to change because you're going to get a Domination Socket in there. And then again, yeah, getting all 5 of your Domination Sockets so you can have a row and a column, or a column and then 2 other good effects, is likely going to be really valuable for Raiders. For Mythic Plusers, it's probably going to be worth it as well. For PvPers, until these things get nerfed into the ground, it's probably going to be worth it as well. Even using, like, heroic raid gear, if you can't get your hands on Mythic raid gear, and you can, like, say you're doing 15 keys or 10 keys or whatever, and you're getting good gear from your weekly box, it'll probably be worthwhile to drop item levels, probably substantial amounts for the first couple shards, maybe even like 20 or 30 item levels to get your first couple shards in, and then it'll probably still be worth dropping 10, 15 item levels to get your last couple shards in there. So raid gear is going to be good. This is going to be a patch where, unlike last tier, somebody in full Mythic raid gear is going to be better than somebody who's not got any Mythic raid gear but has full PvP BIS gear, or full Mythic Plus BIS gear. Especially because, again, PvP gear has gotten nerfed in PvE by 6 item levels. So that's a quick look at sort of the current thoughts about how gear is going to look next patch. I plan to make a video in the next couple days that details all the things you can do right now that might set you up to be best prepared for the new patch. Stuff like maybe min-maxing what legendaries you have crafted going into the patch, doing that socket trick I was talking about that might mean that you save an extra socket next patch from the new system that you'll get them with. All of that will be forthcoming soon, but I wanted to get this video out to talk about particularly the Shards of Domination, because this system is has been pretty opaque up until now. So again, read through this article if you have yet to. It is one worth noting, this point that's made here, is that there's a reusable item that lets you unsocket the shards you have and then socket them into a new piece if you want. You do need to spend some Sigia to buy it, but it's a one-time purchase, and then you have it forever. So that's one of many reasons you might want to make sure you have a little bit of a stockpile of Sigia going into this patch as well. Anyways, hope this video helped. Let me know in the comments what questions you continue to have about this system, or if you disagree with any of my conclusions about the relative values of different, types of gear, any of that kind of stuff. If you disagree with my conclusions about what the kind of default strategies are going to be here, because, again, there are a lot of open questions here. This is just a first look and my thoughts on what's going to be good, but by no means is it definitive, and there's so many questions that remain unanswered about how exactly all of this is going to work. However, that's the end of the video, so come check out my Twitch stream, twitch.tv/ratnos, hit subscribe and stuff. Thanks everybody for watching. I will see you in the next one. Bye.